are not there accidentally, right?
Right.
But the gaps are there because people have said there should be a gap there. That's something we don't want to talk about. So when you fill in the gaps, do you take a lot of crap for that?
Yeah, well, my parents' favorite word of me was baka. Of course, means idiot. How did you meet? Baka, get away from me.
When you ask them how your parents met,
Yeah, I asked my mom, how did you meet Dad? Oh, baka, Dad, how about you? Get away from me. Then eventually I pull out a bottle of Canadian Club whiskey and he, okay, all right, I'll tell you one thing, and one thing only. Okay, all right, this is the way to do it. But yeah, what was the question again?
Yeah, it sounds like you're answering it. But more broadly, let's say more broadly, when you get into stuff like loyalty to the Japanese Empire among Japanese Canadians at that time and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, areas which were, for some very good reasons, were gaps for a long time. They don't have to be anymore, but still, do people react when you get into that stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. When my first novel came out, there was a marked difference between the reaction in Toronto and in Vancouver. Toronto at the book launch, 70 to 100 people showed up. Jennifer, you were there, right? And people bought, right? And they were quite interested in what I was writing about, which was the gangland era of Vancouver, and these Japanese men were controlling BC, basically. Whereas in Vancouver, nobody came. Well, 4. Yeah, my pals, yeah. Former friends. And it wasn't until 6 months later that I found out there was a filmmaker there, and she was doing testimonies. I mean, people talking about their lives, say. And they would say so much, but not everything, right? And then she actually brought up, did you read Terry Watada's book? And they looked at her and said, why would I read that book? What do you mean? Well, he's a dumbhead. Fuck out the dumbhead. They hate me. They absolutely hate me. They will not read the book. I mean, they've never read the book, but they just said, he should not reveal our secrets in public. Dirty laundry. No good. That's just, okay. So, yes, I take a lot of flight.
Kerri, did you get any of that? Have you done any of that?
Well, there was this one man we didn't like that I used his name.
Oh!
It was like, I had no idea there was someone named Smonsu. Anyway, and yeah, he was upset. He told my parents.
Sorry, did you say Damosu?
Yeah.
That's my uncle.
What did you say about his uncle?
There's a man, it's a common name.
Well, that's what I thought, right?
Japanese men were controlling BC, basically. Whereas in Vancouver, nobody came. Well, 4. Yeah, my pals, yeah. Former friends. And it wasn't until 6 months later that I found out there was a filmmaker there, and she was doing testimonies. I mean, people talking about their lives, say. And they would say so much, but not everything, right? And then she actually brought up, did you read Terry Watada's book? And they looked at her and said, why would I read that book? What do you mean? Well, he's a dumbhead. Fuck out the dumbhead. They hate me. They absolutely hate me. They will not read the book. I mean, they've never read the book, but they just said, he should not reveal our secrets in public. Dirty laundry. No good. That's just, okay. So, yes, I take a lot of flight.
Kerri, did you get any of that? Have you done any of that?
Well, there was this one man we didn't like that I used his name.
Oh!
It was like, I had no idea there was someone named Smonsu. Anyway, and yeah, he was upset. He told
Hamilton?
Yeah.
That's my uncle.
What'd you say about his uncle?
It's a man, it's a common name.
Well, that's what I thought, right? But it's a small community, so that kind of thing happens.
Oh.
And he does something where he goes into his sister's underwear drawer and smells her. I felt really odd. I thought, oh, maybe in the next edition I can change the name. And then it'd probably be somebody else's. But I think, with my writing, as you said, it's weird. And I really, I know that. And, it's not everybody's thing. It's not a happy ending, and it's not wholesome, or it's not. But one of the things I really wanted to do was to show that people who go through, who are persecuted and suffer racism, don't end up being necessarily very nice, and that they can become embittered and have some real darkness inside. And I guess I wanted to call on readers to be compassionate even towards people who are unlikable, because that's what can happen to people who suffer. They can become ugly and very unlovable, but that is the real test of compassion. So that was at the heart of my book, really, the first one. So yeah, I didn't really expect the community to really like it, but they were supportive. Because it got some, because it won a prize, and I think then they felt like, well, that's something nice for us, for our community, and and they knew my parents, and so there was goodwill, and that was nice.
Any other questions? Yes.
Talk about filling in the gaps and wanting to inquire about something that is maybe very difficult to get answers about. I'm just wondering, as writers, do you ever come to the place where you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to inquire any further, and I'm just going to allow myself to just be with the mystery. And through that process of allowing yourself just to be with the mystery, to come out with surprising answers. What do you think?
I think to a great extent, growing up, the internment, or in general, sort of what it means to be Japanese Canadian for me was sort of a question mark. It was sort of, what does my Japanese Canadian background mean, was itself a bit of a mystery. Because I didn't speak the language. I can't really say that I grew up with too much connection to the Japanese Canadian community. Like most of the people with whom I grew up who were Japanese Canadian were family members. With the exception of one girl I went to school with who was half Japanese